Hello, good afternoon, good morning to my beautiful, beautiful listeners today. I am so excited. I have the pleasure of interviewing a couple, and I've never had a couple on the show. And I know we have had many requests from some of you of wanting to listen to two beautiful humans share their relationship and their connection and their intimacy and all those things that people just need to talk about more. So, welcome to today's show, my wonderful, wonderful people. I'd love for you both to introduce yourself and we can take it from there.
Okay, she looked at me, I looked at her. My name's Marshall Zweig. I'm a relationship coach, and I am here to talk about my relationship. I actually asked Lucy if I could bring my wife on, and this is my wife and my twin flame, Heather.
I'm Heather. I'm a movement facilitator, and I just want to say I'm pretty awkward with speaking. This is new for me to be vocally expressive, and I appreciate being on here.
And I want to say I'm totally aligned with your mission.
Mm.
People need to talk about this more.
Mhm.
And that's the other part of why I wanted Heather on here.
Mhm.
An essential part of relationship is the physical part. And we have to talk about what we want, what we don't want, what we want and don't want at the same time. There's all sorts of elements we need to talk about. So we're excited to be here.
For sure.
Oh, well, it's such a pleasure to have both of you, and particularly Heather. Like, if this is like, a big deal with using your voice, like it's an honor to have you on the show and you're so heard. So,
Thank
yeah. No, you're welcome. So how did both of you meet each other? This is my first question.
There is an app for, I assume, iPhone and Android called Euchre, Carmen Euchre. And being from Australia, it's big in Australia and New Zealand and in parts of the US. Do you know the card game Euchre?
Never heard of it.
I bided my time playing euchre mindlessly for hours because I was not in a happy relationship. And Heather was trying to learn it. She knew a card game called Canasta, and she had a connection to her grandmother with card games. And while you're waiting for a game to start, there's a lobby. And I was on there for a year before I knew that there was a lobby that people were chatting in. And I went over and I started kind of making banter with the people and trying to, as you'll see from talking to us, Heather and I are very real. So I was trying to turn the banter into a more real conversation. And some people went there with me and some people didn't. And then this human comes on and you can't really see what she looks like. The words she says are kind of glowing.
I felt the same way about yours. I was like, I want to know that person. Yeah.
And when we started talking and she was willing to help me heal, things went into motion that felt like my whole world got flipped upside down. And it was exactly what was supposed to be, because if you really find the person you're supposed to be with, you want to move heaven and earth. We moved heaven and earth. It was a done deal.
Wow. Okay. I mean, thank you for sharing that. There's a lot of there to unpack in such an intimate story. Can you describe in words like how that came about, or is that quite challenging describing the whole situation in words?
Well, I was thinking of relocating and I came to see her. And I remember in the parking lot, we shook hands and she was very supportive of my relationship with my now ex-wife and rooting for me in this. And I did not have any idea that we'd be getting together, but I knew that I suddenly felt this umbrella of love that I hadn't really felt before, or maybe a full spectrum of love. That's maybe a way to say it. And then I was thinking about starting a business. I left my wife, lived with a friend for a while. Then I was thinking of starting a business, and I thought, well, let's room together and see how it goes. And the connection was deep, and spiritual, and meaningful, and we just started to heal together.
Yeah, he was the first person I had ever met in my life where I felt like I could actually start to unmask and be myself and figure out what that even looks like for me. So it's been ups and downs and all the time love and vulnerable and powerful and potent and healing.
And entirely honest. There's nothing about me she doesn't know. And I'm talking about fantasies and thoughts. She knows the code to my phone. She can look on there anytime. Not that she does, but she knows she can. There's nothing I hide from her. Nothing. And it's easy to do when authentically the only person in the world for me is her. There is nothing I hide.
Vice versa as well. Like, you know everything about me, and I never thought that I would ever have that relationship in life. I dreamed about it when I was a teenager. I was like, maybe there will be somebody who I can talk to about these things, who I can share these things with. And it started off, you know, in a texting. The first phone call we had, my voice was so quiet and shaky, and because I just haven't used my voice in life before him. So, yeah.
And one of the things we did when we decided we were going to follow this energy is that we told each other our entire sexual histories, entire. And I think that's incredibly important because people tend to get jealous, as both of you know, and as I know. And the issue with being a survivor of a sexual trauma is you need to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And when people are reacting to the fact that you had a relationship before you even met the person you're in front of, it makes instantly, I want to guard my heart, and I want to guard my words, and I want to guard my throat.
And then how did you go from this level of feeling comfortable to share it with each other? You mentioned you had this like pull and this connection, but that could be pretty intimidating, particularly as both of you shared that you've never had this experience or connection before. Like, how did you learn to trust each other, to go to that level with each other?
There was a time where I was waiting for her to come meet me, and I was pacing. And I thought to myself, the thought came in, well, I don't want to tell her I'm pacing. It looks like I'm anxious to see her. And then I thought, that's exactly what I'm going to tell her. That's exactly what I want this relationship to be. So I immediately texted her, I want you to know I'm anxiously pacing because I'm excited to see you. That for me was the moment where I said, there is never going to be a moment of untruth with her. Not a cell of untruth.
We even had to
Go on,
uncover. Sorry. We even had to face me lying to myself. You know, when you're growing up, you put on this mask if you feel unsafe in your environment, and then you start lying to yourself about things, and then you forget. And then you're an adult and you're walking around lying to yourself. So I had to unlock the fact that I was lying to myself and share that with him, and share with him how I lie to myself and when I lie to myself and what I lie to myself about. And yeah, and to speak to what you were talking about the telling me you were pacing, he'll tell me he misses me, and then he'll say, I get real shy. I don't like admitting that I miss, and it makes it even sweeter. It's just, so yeah, it's all the things you think you're not supposed to tell someone, and you want intimacy with them, you tell them.
Totally. And Heather, how did you feel when you first got that message from Marshall that he was anxiously pacing for you?
I was like, I thought it was adorable, and then I was like, yeah, this is real. This is not some game. This isn't a flirty fantasy playing. This is real, and I'm here for it.
She matched me to the point where there was a period of time where we were really struggling, and we'll get to physical intimacy, but this was a verbal, emotional thing. And she would get triggered and she would lash out, and then she would try to tell me that it wasn't happening. And having experienced things like that in my own family, and I've worked everything out with my mom, for example, but I used to get the words, you have a wonderful family. You have a wonderful family. Well, people who scream at each other and call each other stupid, not my version of wonderful, Lucy.
Yeah.
So I had already worked on that to some degree. I've worked on it more since, but she was trying to tell me that the things that were happening were not happening. And then one day, I remember up here standing next to my bed, she said, oh my gosh, all these things that you said were happening, they are happening. They are happening. And she undid probably generations of trauma in that moment.
Yeah. It's hard to admit, that you're repeating generational trauma, abuse and stuff. And so like I learned gaslighting. And so that's basically what I was doing. And I didn't realize it because I was still stuck in the cycle of gaslighting myself. And you do it out of protection, but yeah, it's, the physical intimacy is super important. And I'm really grateful that you have your podcast for that. When you allow yourself as a couple to go into that intimacy, it really does play out into all the other areas of your relationship. We're not just intimate in our physical we're intimate in the ways that we have been like the gaslighting, the ways that we repeat generational abuse and stuff like that. And even, we have a son, and the way that we catch ourselves in the moment. Oh my gosh, if I were doing what you're doing, my son, I'd say to him, if I were doing what you're doing, my parents would react this way, but I'm going to react this way. And so that, it just, we could talk about it forever.
Yeah, a commitment to ending generational trauma is like, sometimes I'll talk to Wesley and I say these words that I know are me, but I'll hear screaming in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'll hear the way I was talked to in my head. I do not replicate it out of my mouth.
How do you both know then what is the right way to parent your child, right? Because there's no right or wrong, but if you're both from backgrounds where shouting or gaslighting and unmasking your voice was the norm, as it were, that is a big thing to also look at from an intimate perspective, how to reparent your child in a way that I guess your own inner child would be reparented.
My philosophy is this: children they appear in this world and they don't really know what's going on. There's no manual that says this is your parent and this is why they're this way. And my philosophy, and as Heather knows, explain everything to our child, and our child is 3 grades ahead in informational learning, so that worked. I mean, at least that's the evidence that it worked. And tell them the truth.
Yeah. Honesty is a real big part of it.
The age appropriate truth. There are ways to tell anything in an age appropriate way.
Yeah. And then we allow for his curiosity to base that age appropriate conversation, like he'll ask questions. And
but there's a big difference between stop that and I'm really stressed out today and my nerves are on edge and the sound is irritating me. There's an unquantifiable difference between stop that means what you're doing is wrong and you're annoying, and the other one is I'm making a request. You get to live your life, I get to live my life. And that's true with children. Mm-hmm. That's true with intimate partners. That would be true with me and you, Lucy. We've just met. That's how I would talk to you.
Yeah,
totally. Yeah, totally. And then if we just take a step back from when you two met and like connected, did either one of you want to run away? Because sometimes that must be some parts of you that are like, this is so uncomfortable.
They say that with twin flames. I think you had a little. I did not.
I had doubts, but underneath the doubt was just a knowing. Even the times where we were struggling to learn each other's language and to communicate and to find that baseline of connection and communication, we would go, are we just crazy? Is this crazy? What are we doing? But underneath that, there was always trust. There was always just a knowing. Like, I've never had anything like this with anybody else. It's exactly what I used to dream about as a kid. I'm not running away because we're struggling a little bit. I'm not doing that.
There was twice things got rough we lived in another state, and I packed my bags. And I packed my bags because I knew, based on society's version of what a relationship is, that I should be.
Yeah.
And I wheeled it to the back door, and I'm like, I'm going off the edge of a map. Here there be dragons, as they used to say in those old maps. They didn't know what was there. They were like, here be tigers. Here there be dragons. I was going off the edge of an earth. And I had to say to myself both times, no, you're going to make it through this. It's very difficult. You're going to make it through. And on the other side is the person that you know her to be. And it was. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. At one point I was like, we can just, I like even tried to tell him I would put my mask back on. I would put a mask back on so that I didn't treat you so poorly. So I didn't take these learned behaviors out on you, so that I didn't take my triggers or project onto you so much. I want to protect you. I'll put a mask back on. And he said, no, we're going in after her. My inner child. We're going in after her.
I did.
And he did.
She said, just leave that part of me. Just leave it here. And I'm like, no, we're not leaving it. That's part of you. We're taking that part with us.
Yeah.
I remember that. Wow.
Wow. That's amazing though. Like
Yeah.
how amazing, like you two are so lucky that you have that awareness with each other. Sometimes it's a blessing, sometimes it's a curse, right?
Very rarely a curse. And the only part that would be a curse is that, you know, if you've got 5 minutes before a meeting and you have to have a conversation, our conversations are usually not 5 minutes long.
No.
That's about the only time it's difficult. And even in those, okay, let's take a pause. I know what we're going to talk about. We're going to do it later.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's smart. I think that's such great advice to give to anyone listening, because that's a really easy thing to like start implementing that a lot of people don't think about. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Totally. And then you mentioned obviously around like this word twin flame, and what does that kind of mean for you guys? What does that look like?
You want to go? Go.
Well,
Heather's dying to go, I can see.
I didn't look.
I'm always dying to go. I don't mean that as a joke. You know what I mean?
I didn't look up twin flame really, but from being with you and learning about it a little bit, I realized twin flame for us means like all of our pieces, all of our little edges and corners of our who we are, what makes us who we are, our triggers, our gifts, they all fit perfectly. Like what you've experienced in your life is going to match up perfectly to either trigger me, heal me, exactly with what I've experienced in life. So we like click. That's what it means for me.
In that moment, she looked at me. Do it again. That's how she looked at me last night. And we were having a beautiful, sacred, spiritual, intimate experience.
Mhm.
And we look each other in the eyes. And now it's right here that I'm telling this to you. I feel like most of the time people say have a relationship as the icing on the cake after you get your shit together.
No.
And in my situation, I feel like there was someone meant for me and we could get our shit together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That is so powerful. I can't wait for people to listen to that. I think a lot of people are going to be like, oh God. But I also feel like on that comment that you've made is it's actually for a lot of people that are avoiding love as well and making it as an excuse of I need to be fixed in the personal development world, that I know sometimes that can build on that wound for people, and that we're meant to grow together as a couple. Like I look at my parents, they've been married for like 40 years and they go through, they're not perfect, no one's perfect, but they go through their shit together, you know? And yeah, I think that's a beautiful thing to highlight, Marshall, that part of connection is growing together. You don't need to be ready. And you mentioned obviously you were coming out of a marriage at the time too. Did you find you had a belief that you battled with that was around like, it's not the perfect time because you're just coming out of a marriage and things maybe didn't feel right?
I feel like Heather had that going on.
Oh, okay.
I was also coming out of
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to answer, or since she had that going on, do you want her to answer?
Whoever is open to talking about it.
At first I was like, let me have a year of just myself. we could stay in touch and stay connected. Let me have a year. But it just didn't happen. I believe in that whole, you come out of a relationship, work through coming out of it and recover from it and then get stable and then get into a relationship. But that just was not what was going to happen for us. And you didn't try to talk me out of it. You said it would be really hard for you, but if that's what I needed. And then all of a sudden I was like, that's all I needed was you to validate my request and to honor my autonomy. And then I'm in, let's just keep going how we're going.
Yeah. And for me, I guess I'm from there was no time to waste place, because I'd been waiting all my life for her. So I didn't really want to wait more. And I remember we went to a gathering on New Year's, and there was this woman there that's friends with Heather, friends with me too, but like friends with Heather. And she was talking about how she didn't want to move in with her boyfriend because there were all sorts of things that she still needed to work through. And I said, life in human form goes by. Are you sure you want to wait till you have all this stuff worked out? Now, what I coach, because there's no actual book of love, that's why I'm writing one, and that's why I coach one, is because we can learn to be our own healers and each other's healers. And I remember one time she closed her eyes, opened the door, the first time we met, actually. And I said, in my head, you trusted the right person. It's so rare that we find someone who values our needs equally to their own. That's what you need in a true loving relationship. My needs and your needs have to matter exactly equally to both people.
Yeah.
And did you find that was quite easy to do that?
Well, with my background, and how closed off I was to feeling, I was basically disassociated out of my body. And it was difficult for me to wrap my head around, but through his assistance and his love and his patience and determination, I got back to my heart. And so that's when it became easy, getting back to my heart and realizing that so I knew he was safe. I knew I trusted the right person. I knew that I could be in a relationship where our needs mattered equally, but I was blinded by all the things that I had suppressed through childhood. So it was hard to see you through all of that. It was difficult, but I was going to make it happen because you were determined to help me. So
my answer to the same question would be simply this, and I could say this to all three of us. We've all been in situations where our needs did not matter to the person who was treating us in a way that we would call mistreatment. I don't want to replicate that behavior. I want to do or be what I want to do and be only with your permission. Otherwise, I can do and be that over here. Right. And I can still meet my own needs or whatever happens. I don't want to do it at the expense of you ever with anyone.
Totally. And I think some people may even do that without realizing nowadays, because if I look at how you both word it when you say your needs match each other's needs, I know, and myself included, at times I'm like, well, how do I even fulfill my own needs at a basic level, right? Like you say, Marshall, like if you've been brought up or you've had certain circumstances where those needs haven't been met, that you're like, wow, I'm an adult now, but haven't learned as a child those needs. So it's like, where do you start? And how do you take that from there? And Heather, I have so much respect for you that you can recognize all these different areas in yourself, but also be like, no, I deserve this. You have a level of like deservingness. And I think particularly with a lot of people, deservingness can be a real challenge. Like, did you feel you had that level of deservingness before you met Marshall, or do you feel that Marshall helped cultivate that within you during your relationship?
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry, I got excited.
That's fine. Get excited. It's great.
I think it was there as a kid. It was
Mm,
fueled by my anger of how I was being treated. But, you know, I got numb to it. I like hardened to it, and I forgot that that was there, and he reignited that flame. And so we had to go through sifting through all of this new belief that I am undeserving, that I it's not for me. Everybody else can have, their rights, their needs met and everything, but just not me.
yeah.
So it was the fight in me was reignited, and unfortunately some of it came out on you, but yeah, it was through meeting him that I was reminded of my deservingness of being of deserve. I don't know how to say that.
Different deservingness. I like it.
Okay, good. Deservingness.
I know what your podcast is about, and I will tell you that as someone who has experienced sexual trauma, I have to go through, if I'm asking for, much less now with Heather, but I had to go through it with Heather, and it still comes up, like, there's something disgusting about me. You don't want to. There's all these things where, like, if I ask for what I need, I'm asking someone to go into like something that they don't want, like revulsion. There's all these emotions tied up in what I need.
Mm-hmm.
And asking for what I need means I have to face those mixed upness, right? The now I'm doing your thing where I don't know the exact word, the confusion that's associated with the feelings, with the emotions, with the experiences.
Yeah.
And is there anything that you two both do together as, I don't know if I want to say the word practice, but that helps bring that reassurance back in yourself? Marshall, I'll start with you first, because I've had someone on the show recently, like a psychoanalyst, and we talk about how you don't necessarily need to get rid of your trauma. The pain that you experience can be like an empowering way in your own sexuality. Like, do you find you resonate with that statement, or do you feel you use it as a form of, you've mentioned the word healing, but healing can mean a lot for people. So how do you channel that in your intimacy with each other?
You got one?
No, I'm gonna let you go first.
Well,
I'm processing, but
the first thing I want to say is, when you mention pain, this is an inspirational human being next to me, because she understands that life contains suffering and pain, and she had to widen out to a lot of pain in her life. And I watch her and I'm inspired by her. We had to reschedule with you, as you know. She had a difficult couple of days, and she was gracious with herself and honest, and she shared with me a lot, and it passed. It moved through her. That's the idea. If we can be in the flow, and we can be flow, not in the flow, but we can be flow, we can be the channel for the ocean, well, then our moods pass, our situations pass, our perspectives pass. It's when we clamp down on something, it's locked in position and rigid and fixed. And that's not a state from which any of us can be our authentic selves. We are not rigid. We are moving water. Even if we feel rigid, we're not. We're moving water. The tension of the nervous system is like an antenna of an old-fashioned TV. And when you clamp down like this, you're getting a very different channel than when you let go.
Why do you think a lot of people are stuck in that nervous system, fixed, clamped togetherness?
Well, I can tell you, I think it's because, like you said earlier, some people just don't know there's any other way.
Yeah.
Let's say somebody drops blue sunglasses on me when I'm a little kid, which basically happened with my sexual trauma. Well, I block it out, and all of a sudden the world's blue. And I'm like, oh, no, the world's blue. Look at the beautiful blue world. And people are like, you're wearing blue sunglasses? No, I'm not. Oh, I am. I forgot. You don't know. You just get used to the world as it is, or as you believe it to be.
yeah.
Totally. And then how did you, because a lot of people don't know any different, like we've both discussed, take those blue sunglasses off, right? Because if you don't know what you don't know, I mean, this could go forever, but like we could all be living in a blue glasses world without knowing what we're seeing and what we're not feeling. And for anyone that's listening right now that can really resonate and think, you know what, something didn't feel right for me as a child or as an adolescent that I didn't agree with sexually, what advice would you, either one of you, give for them to just start looking at it, because this is such intimidating, scary stuff. But like both of you have shared in your own words, once you lift that veil up, there's so much magic in life.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I would validate your own feelings. I would
Mhm.
sit with that. If you have a thing in your head, it's like, it didn't feel right. Doesn't matter what other people say. If it didn't feel right to you, it didn't feel right. It wasn't right for you.
Totally.
And be with your body in that, and then follow where that leads you. That would be my advice, and just have compassion for yourself. Yeah.
Before I met Heather, as I said to you before we started recording, I was addicted to adult content video. And almost every time when I would open up my browser, I type in the little address, the URL bar there, help me. Honestly, help, HELP space ME. And then I would start surfing my stuff, because I was trapped in the cycle of renegotiating trauma and not even knowing. I had blocked it out. So I didn't even know why did I want to steer my car into the concrete median on the highway, you know? And that's if anyone's listening right now and they're sitting with something's wrong, but I don't know what it is, I say to you, something's wrong, even if you don't know what it is. And now, in the quiet of your house, in the still of the night, even if you feel like you can't look at it, look at it. Do something around you that makes you feel somewhat safer. Like for me, it's water. So maybe take a shower or bath, walk outside, take your shoes off and be in nature. Some environmental place, put music on, maybe it's an audio place, some sensory place where you can start to look at what's actually true. I'll tell you an experience. Have you ever heard of Eckhart Tolle?
Yes. Yeah.
So I remember hearing him for the first time, 2 decades ago. And I'm like, I'm going to say to myself, I am not my mind. And I was in the shower, a safe place for me to contemplate. And I said to myself, I am not my mind. Instantly, Lucy, I thought of killing myself. Instantly. That's how associated I was with my mind. So to your listeners, you are not your mind. You are not your thoughts. You are not your beliefs. You are them to the extent that you believe that what they are is the truth and the only truth. But if you widen out to the fact that anything can be blue sunglasses, then anything can be taken off and put back on. I don't know if the sun's going to come up tomorrow, Lucy. The world may explode. People, oh, don't worry, the sun will come up tomorrow. You heard that song before. I love that song, but no, I can't promise you the sun will come up tomorrow. I don't know.
That can be really daunting for people to hear.
Exactly.
Yes.
Just like the idea that our physical bodies are all going to die. There are probably people on I'm turning off Lucy's podcast right now.
Totally.
Reality is you have a fixed amount of time in this body. Might it grow? Might they invent science that lets us live hundreds of years? Sure. I'm open to that. I'm open to that I can make myself fly. I just don't know how to yet. Staying open is how greatness is achieved, internally and externally. They asked Edison once, why don't you give up? You've tried 5,000 times to invent the light bulb. He said, what are you talking about? That's 5,000 ways I know won't work.
I love that. I feel like everyone should listen to that, because so many people are so quick to quit things. Relationships, as an example, right? Like, the stats and divorce and all this. What's both of your views on that? Like, people are quick to quit, because it sounds like many couples, you've had times where that was the easy way out, right? In so many situations.
That's an interesting question.
Yeah.
When I coach, you want to go first?
No, you can go first.
When I coach, I always say to people, to couples, I want to allow to emerge what is supposed to emerge, because I married a couple once. I performed the wedding ceremony. And as they're walking down the aisle, I got this hit, Lucy. You're not supposed to be married. This is not going to work out. Well, what do I do? They're playing dee, 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 dee. I kept my mouth shut. It was an outdoor wedding. And from the day they got married, they were unhappy, and now they're divorced. So there's lots of potential equations to why people get together. What I would say is the fundamental questions are, is this person here for your own best interests as well as their own? Can they be selfless as well as selfish?
And that's a big question. Can you be selfless and selfless? Like that's selfish or in selfless?
You have to be selfish, because if you're not selfish, you can't ask for your needs. And
Totally.
maybe you're not selfish because you don't know what they are. I know when I was first together with Heather, I was much more selfless than I was selfish. And that's not healthy, because when you don't know what you want, you end up looking oh, look at, I'm this wonderful person. Why aren't my relationships working out? I'm so kind to everyone. I give them what they want. Yeah, but you're not in this thing. So we have to know what we want and be selfish. And we have to be able to understand what the other person wants and be selfless enough to say, I want you to get what you want.
My comment on the divorce question is, I think we put too much weight on divorce rates. Like, it's really, how many people get married too quickly? You know, like how many people get married without really knowing the person? And if they do that and then they get married and then they realize what they've done, I applaud them getting divorced. I don't really put a lot of weight on marriage divorce rates or how quickly somebody goes into a relationship or how quickly they come out of it necessarily. People are figuring their stuff out. They're working through stuff. And if they go into a relationship, they get married and they realize, oh my gosh, that's not what I want, and they divorce quickly, then they've learned something about themselves and hopefully they grow from that. So just do your thing, figure it out. I mean,
She's
as
right.
long as somebody is working on themselves, you know, they're learning from their experiences in life. If you're just out there getting married and divorcing because of the fun of it, I think that's the only place that I have a slight judgment on that. Like, don't put people through that, you know, if you're not working on yourself.
I mean, to a large extent, marriage is a governmental constraint.
Mm-hmm.
Totally.
In the situation I have with Heather now, no, it's a spiritual. It's a choice that we made. We were together for a lot of years before we got married. And after the glow of like, oh, you're my husband, you're my wife, after that wore off, I feel exactly the same as I did for the 6 or 7 years that we were, or 5 years, however many we were together. The idea of being together with someone has to be, in my opinion, a moment by moment thing. In other words, I'm always choosing to be here. I'm not forced to be here.
Mm-mm.
I'm not obligated to be here. I'm choosing to be here. And if you treat life like that, you will be more respectful of people, because you know at any point they can leave. They're not here for you to dump your shit on them. And by dump your shit, I don't mean to express yourself vulnerably. I mean attack them, mistreat them like you were mistreated. People aren't there for that. They're there to grow and heal and feel safe.
Our 1-year anniversary for our getting married just passed, and I was like, oh, it just like completely passed us by, because it's not something that we have a lot of weight on. I mean, the choosing every day is what's like, getting married for me was a commitment to choosing you every day. It was, you know, I choose you. So
right, I choose you.
I choose to be present here with you and to continue to integrate our lives together in all the intimate ways that we do. And that, you know, choosing to be present physically as well is really important. So there's like, I've had to express to him, I'm not really in the mood, but I'm willing to go there if it's, you know, for your needs. That's the selfless part. But I used to not in the beginning even say that I wasn't in the mood, because we were both those selfless people in the beginning. I was like, yeah, okay, it's what he needs, you know, I'll do that. But that intimacy of telling you I'm not at a place to go there, that's choosing me in that moment, and then also offering to be present for the experience is choosing you.
There's another version of that, which is, I'm doing this because I'm sort of, I go to sleep and I feel like I have to, I'm obligated to. And we've expressed that to each other too. I know that happened to me multiple times, where like, I'm doing this thing physically, but inside I'm all caught up in some old programming. And
Mhm.
we're all, the three of us are nodding. We
Yeah.
all know what we're talking about.
Totally.
That's
Yeah.
an important thing to be able to express to a partner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's pressure as well that can come from society, you know, like if you're not making love to your partner certain amounts of time, or, you know, like cultures where people brag about it, you know, like, oh, I'm having sex with my wife every night. And, you know, that kind of level of conversation, which people happily have, but they don't necessarily turn around and be like, hey, we haven't had sex in 3 weeks. Like, what's going on here? And I think women can tend to be more open with that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Marshall. I can imagine if you have a very good group of male friends in your life, but I think typically for the man, that's quite a challenging conversation to have with friends, you know, like, hey, I'm feeling this in my sex life. Whereas I feel women, we are tend to be a lot more open about it.
I agree. I mean, you're right. I have, you know, I choose my friends carefully. So I have
Mm,
friends I can talk about that stuff with, but
mm,
I agree with you. I will say this. Now, this works for us. I don't like to say absolutes about a relationship unless I believe they'll work for everyone. But every night, there maybe been a handful of exceptions. Like if we have a disagreement that doesn't get resolved on a particular day, it wouldn't be true. But other than that, and those are few and far between.
Right.
Every night we have a physical exchange of energy. It does not have to be penetrative sex.
Mm-mm.
Sometimes it is, but even when it's not, which is many nights, we are physically intimate with each other. I'd say no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah. Just having that constant flow
mm,
of exchange with you is really helpful, you know, and then you don't get caught up in how long has it been, and, you know, how often should we be doing this. Then you're really in the flow of what's right for you and your partner. You know, there's that constant connection of, okay, I'm feeling a little bit more frisky tonight, can we go a little further, or something like that, versus it's been a while. And you know, I was in a relationship at one point where the only time there was affection and attention like that was whenever my partner wanted penetrative intimacy, and then I would prolong that so that I could continue to have that affection. And
well,
then once it was done,
mhm.
we went our separate ways and I was sad. And that's not the way to, I mean, I want to say that's not the way to do it. That's not the way to be intimate with your partner. That's not how. So just like you said, having that connection on a regular basis, a daily basis, every night we connect some way, even if it's just snuggling and
Mm,
just feeling each other's body up against one another. You know, it's
mm.
I love that. I get chills. Sorry. Not sorry. But
Yeah.
There's a subtle distinction. There's a subtle distinction, which maybe not so subtle when you start to examine it, which is I may always want to physically intermingle with this person I love, but being inside of them or having them inside of me maybe isn't part of that intermingling. She can come to me with this, you know, intimacy that we do, physical intimacy that we do, and she exudes every energetic characteristic of sexuality as if we were inside each other, but we're not.
yeah.
Mhm.
So if you can trust someone to say, okay, this may not lead to penetrative sex, this may stop where it is, but I'm going to be there as if it is the same thing as penetrative sex. Then you learn how to exude that energy and exchange that energy without having penetrative sex. And that can be as beautiful or more beautiful. It all depends on how you experience it.
Yeah.
Mhm. And how did you both, this is when my mind comes in, but I've been fortunate, I've experienced that myself too. But how do you explain a couple to start doing that? Because we're in this day and age where it's all about penetration, get it done, off you go, wham bam, off to sleep. I can see
Yeah.
Heather cringing, I am too. And I don't mean to judge on those circumstances,
No,
but
no.
as a society, no, I'm the same. As a society, that's the norm, right? Going back to the porn and you know, all those things, Marshall, you share that you used to look at online. How did you both, I'll start off again, did you both meet each other where you were open to starting that, or did that happen organically as your relationship grew?
What an interesting question.
I
Yeah,
think
I know.
both.
I'm thinking that myself.
So we decided, it came up for me that I needed to start saying, okay, I don't want to be touched. I don't want to be touched. And what
Mm.
happened was we slowed down the conversation in the bedroom to the point where, like, he would touch my breast and I would talk about what I felt, and it wasn't going to lead anywhere else. But our interaction for the night was talking about the anger that came up for me whenever he would touch it, my desire to punch him in the face whenever he would touch me there, and just being with that and slowing down. That was really big, and talking about everything. And then once I've talked about everything and that anger is no longer anger, and now it's okay, so there's a hint of anger, a memory of anger, but now I'm feeling your love in your touch, and holding space for everything, not just making the climax the ultimate goal for physical intimacy with someone. That was climactic for me in my life. It would make me cry just letting you touch me while I felt angry about that spot being touched. And it was just slowing down. Slow down.
I don't know why this came up from the question from what Heather was saying, but I remember we had a mirror laying against our wall in another house. And sometimes when we would be physically intimate, I would see Heather looking at us in it. And I would think that was exciting her. As it turns out, she was not very in her body. And she was looking at the mirror to say, this is what's happening right now. This is happening. Try to relax into it. The things that we take for granted about a sexual experience, a physically intimate experience, are not necessarily what we believe them to be. And I think the questions about the sexual experiences can be just as interesting, if not more interesting, as, how was your day at work today? Start talking about it. Start saying, I caught you looking at us in the mirror. Does that excite you? No, blah, blah, blah. Here's what's really true.
Lets me feel my body.
It lets you feel your body.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. And then why do you think, both of you, that we are conditioned to think that we do need to have penetrative sex, that it does need to just be that pace rather than the intimacy, like the communication with, Marshall, you asking Heather about the mirror scenario, like you wouldn't get that if it was, quick 30 minutes, off you go kind of thing.
Well, mine goes back to the idea that a woman's job is just to, what is the word?
Please a man.
Well, please a man and also make babies. Just,
Mm-hmm.
Our pleasure and what we go through has not been of importance to society for a really long, it's kind of ingrained in people. It's taught to us, it's the man's job to make a baby with a woman. It's the woman's job to have a baby. He can go do whatever he wants or whatever. It's not that that hasn't been, you didn't marry for love way back when. And, that spending time intimately in the bedroom was just not proper. And I feel like even before that, though, I feel like we were there as a humanity at one point and then it went away. And now we're rediscovering it. So that's mine.
Say the question again, because I have something I want to say, but maybe it's not exactly online with the question.
Why do you think as society we are conditioned to think that we do need to always have penetrative sex to be connected with our partner, and that it has to be that kind of quick 30-minute, short space of time of just coming and going, basically?
If I have to answer it that way, I would say, not that I like the way you're asking it.
Yeah.
I would say it's because we don't talk about things. We don't know, maybe the most you can get out of someone is, it excited me when you did that. But what you don't usually get back is, what about it excited you?
Right.
Well, now you get the real fruit of that's inside. An artichoke is all these bristly things, and inside is that delicious heart. So I think it's because we don't talk. I think it's because we don't talk before, during, or even after. And then there's just two people going like this. The intimacy of the actual act is the fact that one person is going inside another, the other person is letting that person inside. And that's a huge deal. That's a huge deal when two physical bodies are interrelated like that. We don't talk about it enough.
That's true. Yeah.
And then in that case, what do you both think about the one night stands? You know, I
I
never
have
want to
had,
shame on anything,
I
but
was a serial relationship person.
Never have.
I had one. Now I've changed a lot in my life. It was like to try to impress the guys at work because this was a pretty human being at work. And I remember that I lost my erection because I didn't have enough intimacy. Fortunately for me, interestingly, this person ended up telling me they were a survivor of sexual trauma. They told me years later because they kept in touch with me for many years. You wouldn't think as a man, if you lose your erection, that a woman would keep in touch with you, but she did. I don't get excited by only physical intimacy. I have to have the emotional, and she knows on nights when we haven't agreed, the last thing I want is physical intimacy. And you said about male friends, I have a dear friend who's exactly the same way. After the fight, if we talk, and I call it a fight to be, glib, but after the disagreement, if we talk, now my heart opens back up. When my heart opens up, I'm in.
wow. And even for someone to say that opening up their heart, then you're in. Opening up your heart is fucking terrifying, okay?
Yes.
Right? And I know from listeners that I've spoken to that, and quite a lot of them have been male listeners that have shared this with me. Opening up their heart is a real challenging thing to do, particularly as like little kids. Be a tough boy, be the tough man. How have you, first question, have you always had an open heart like that? Has that always been something you've been comfortable with doing?
I was determined to have an open heart. I could feel life trying to close my heart, and it did to a significant degree. But I used to walk around with my chest. I don't know if you can see, but I used to like puff my chest out. People would wonder why I was walking like that, because I was really determined to live life openly. And now I don't puff my chest out. I let the energy flow through me, and I work with a wonderful energy chiropractor. If we unguard our hearts, then it's sort of like going through life with your eyes closed.
Mm.
We're not really experiencing the richness of life. Life does include pain. And again, she is the most inspirational human being I've ever known like that. We have to widen out to the painful parts too, because they are part of the experience. It's hard. I use the phrase unguard your heart as in my coaching, because that's what we have to coach people. I say teach with those air quotes, because people just like you, I'm the same way. Those areas where I'm guarded, I'm like, fuck you, you're not getting in here. Fuck you, I'm not. And really what I'm saying is I'm not taking a chance on getting hurt like that again. I see a pattern. That's what our meaning-making mind machines do. They see patterns. Can I open back up? Can I? It's not a for sure guarantee. It's a question to yourself. How brave are you to do this with an open heart?
Because it's so scary and it's so intimidating. Yeah.
I think that adds to your previous question also. The heart has been taken out of physical intimacy.
Whoa, totally. Yes, I have chills, you saying that. Totally.
Sometimes after I reach the height of my experience, because she knows what I've been through in my life, she'll put her hands here. She'll make sure that it's like the energy. I get emotional, but she makes sure that the energy goes all the way up, so it doesn't stay down here, and so it goes, like the Kundalini is supposed to go in those waves. So I can feel. She puts her hands. I can feel it going up like that. It's really beautiful.
That is so magical. I love that. Heather's like, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm so honored, and thank you for being so open about your relationship. Like, it takes so much courage, and I'm so honored to have you on today's show. And your voices mean so much, and just keep doing what you're doing. And for anyone that is listening that wants to work with either one of you, how can they reach out to you and how can they hear more about what you're both up to?
I appreciate the question. So my name is Marshall with 2 L's, Marshall. The last name is difficult. Z as in zebra, Weig, Marshall Zweig. I know it'll be in the show notes.
Yes.
So you've put that .com, marshallzweig.com, and up will come my relationship coaching. I don't even know you, listener, who might click on my link, but I care about you already, and I care about you, I should say. So I would love to work with anybody. Loved being here, Lucy. And when I say love, you give us a chance to talk about ourselves in a way that might make a difference for other people. That's a gift you gave us. Love to be here. Appreciate that this worked out. Thank you.
On his website is a link to a podcast that you do, actually, that we do together. So that's where you can find me. I have an Instagram, but I don't do anything with it professionally.
She does movement facilitation. Oh, you can also find me on an app called Ngomu, INGOMU.com. And I live stream twice a month. I'm actually doing it tonight. She does movement facilitation. And though she does it in person, I really wish she would do it online, because teaching someone how to move, not to the music, not to dance, but to move in a way that your body wants you to move, is like helping somebody get back into flow. So if you want to work with her, reach out to me. I'll figure out a way to get you in touch with her. It's not that hard. Hey, honey.
Amazing. Okay, well, both of you, seriously, thank you so much. Keep doing what you're doing, and what an example you are to the world about how we should all live our lives in relationships and with ourselves. So thank you.
You can't see me here, but I'm sitting in a half lotus like I always do. And lotus flowers grow in dirt and mud for most of their lives. Only when they get to the moment when they are ready to actually shine do they blossom. And to all your listeners, to you, to me, to Heather, that's us. We're in the mud right now, but we're getting ready to blossom.
I love that. Go on, Heather. I can see you want to chip in.
I was going to say thank you for your podcast. This is a very important topic for people to be getting information on and to be growing in. And I appreciate what you're doing. Your voice is making a huge impact. So thank you. And thank you for having us on here as your first couple too. Thank you.
Oh, you're absolutely welcome. And yeah, if I can help anyone in this world, it's an absolute honor. So thank you. And I'm excited to hear how your journeys unfold. So I will put everything in the show notes for the listeners on today's episode. And if anyone feels they can resonate or they feel triggered, please reach out to myself and we can put you in touch with the right people that can support you. And Michelle, Heather, once again, thank you so much for joining today. It's been an absolute honor and pleasure to have you on the show.
It has been.
Thank you.
Thank you.